Hello, welcome to another episode of the Project Purple podcast. I'm Dino Varelli, founder and CEO of Project Purple. We have an exciting interview coming up with a special guest after a few quick updates. Since 2010, we've contributed over $3 million and counting to pancreatic cancer research efforts. We've also allocated over $1 million worth of aid to more than 1,300 patients and families through our patient aid programs. Your monthly or one-time gift can improve patients' lives through research and assistance programs. You can donate now at projectpurple.org. Pancreatic cancer does not rest, and neither will we. Your support is truly appreciated. If you're looking to get involved in one of our events, whether that means joining a run team, participating in a virtual run walk, group fitness, golf, or anything else you can think of, visit projectpurple.org/events to learn more. Without further ado, let's meet our special guest coming to us from the island, Long Island, just crowned. Now, I know it's not official, but it is everything's been submitted. So it's not, I guess, official, but all the evidence is there. You did the event, but the Guinness World Record pull-up record holder with 9,250 pull-ups in a 24-hour span, Doug Censor Martin, to the Project Purple podcast. How are you, Doug? Thanks for joining us here on the Project Purple podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm happy we're at this point now. It's feeling really nice to be at this point for sure.
Yeah, you seem much more happier, as we said before we hit record. Like, you got a haircut, you're smiling a lot more. We talked to you like right after the attempt. I think you just had dropped off your buddy there at the airport, and you looked spent. Which you should be when you do 9,250 pull-ups. And correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, you did that in 20 hours, right? Like, you have 24 hours to complete as many as possible, but you decided because of some injuries or just some things. Well, we'll talk about that, but you did that was that in 20? Did I read that correctly?
I broke the record with about 5 hours to go. I think I did it at 19 hours and 3 minutes to be exact. And then I continued to go for a little bit longer, just to pass the record a little bit more. I feel it's like an unspoken thing with the record. If you're gonna beat the record, don't just beat it by one. It's kind of petty in my opinion. Like, you kind of have to. Records are made to be broken, and if you're gonna get a record, I think it's very important that you push it as far as you can. You do the best that you can because it's all you can do. But you got to understand too, this is a big thought that I've always had before I even did the training, was that records are meant to get broken, and you're not going to be the best forever. There's always going to be someone else who's hunting, someone else who's trying to be better. So I've always been a very big advocate of pushing things to a new limit, but also encouraging others to push it even further too. So I'm fully supportive of anyone who goes for the record. I want to make this clear. I'm very, very, very passionate about people who try to train to break the record or need help with it too, because I had the best coach in the world helping me throughout my training. And it only makes sense moving forward that if anyone needs help with pull-up training, that I would always be there for them unconditionally, because the process is absolutely brutal. And I just feel very grateful to be in this spot right now, to be honest with you.
So wild, man. It's so awesome. So now you did this in honor of Project Purple, which we're going to talk about the reasons behind that. I just want to, so we've also had, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, Doug, we had a guy on the podcast a couple months back from the UK who also set the Guinness World Record for drumming consecutively. So we're a little familiar, maybe our audience is a little familiar with that process, like similar process. He had to be recorded. You got people there. I think he drummed for I don't even want to mention the duration. It was something like, I think it was like 7 days or something like that. He was drumming music.
Wow.
And he had said it, and then, like, very similar, like, it's almost eerie what you just said. Like, records are made to be broken, and someone stepped up, and it was a colleague of his, someone that he got to know. And then, he decided to re-break it. But when he did break it, yeah, he went a little bit further, as further as he could. to kind of set the bar a little bit higher and to push it. But there is a process here with Guinness, and you have to record it, you have to submit it. So now, where are you in that process? So I know you said earlier the other day that you had a meeting with someone. So you've done everything. You did the 9,250, which the previous record, I think from our research, was like 8,940. But as you say, these records kind of, simultaneously, there might be someone there doing it this week or, in a couple of weeks that might have an attempt. So, but you're in the process now of submitting. Where are you in that? Did you submit everything to Guinness, and where does that stand?
Yeah, they require a lot. I'm actually doing it all day. I've been doing it since last week. It's a lot of work. You need to have a cover letter. You need to have witness statements, personal trainer certifications, a logbook detailing every single pull up that you did throughout the entire day. You need to take every piece of the video and cut them up into smaller pieces and upload them individually to Guinness as well, which is the part that I'm at now, which takes a long time because every file seems to have issues with uploading and you have to constantly re-upload them if they don't go through the first time. So it's taken me a full week to just get all the evidence in order, scan everything to a computer, upload everything. And I'm at the final part now where all I have to do is just submit the final parts of the video, which like I have like 244 clips of like 1 gigabyte files that I need to upload to Guinness. So it's a exhausting process to go through, but it's definitely not as bad as the training or the record day itself. So I'll just sit here and gladly just comfortably sit at a computer and click upload and lose my mind doing that as opposed to doing the training.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've got a pretty vast audience, and I want to kind of take a step or two backwards here, and share kind of your background because you have kind of a very unique background in terms of where you were before you decided to do this world record. So, for our audience listening, some of them hopefully will know who you are, but there might be some people out there, in particular in our community, that don't know who you are and where you started in terms of kind of your social and your impact that you've had in certain spaces. So give our audience a little bit of your background here, Doug.
Well, my name's Doug. I'm 30 years old. I've been playing video games my whole life, so it was always a big part of my life since I was a kid. I've been very fortunate, very blessed, very privileged, very appreciated to be able to make a career out of gaming. Not many people are able to do so, and I always felt very lucky because I've seen a lot of my friends who are way better than me in gaming, like way more talented, better at everything that I could ever do, that never were able to continue to have a career and have to move on to other avenues of life when I knew that their dreams were to be a gamer or they love to play so much, but they had to find another thing to do. And I always felt very honored to be able to play video games my whole life and make money doing it, to be able to support myself and make a life and a career out of just broadcasting my life to the internet. And the thing I always took a lot of pride in was that everything I did was always very real. I never changed who I was or became somebody different to get more attention on me. Everything I've done throughout my life, whether it was winning tournaments, getting known through being a champion in gaming, making food videos where I'm trying basic common foods that I never had for the first time, or doing like a vlog of my life. I mean, I've kind of went through a lot of phases on the internet of showcasing myself in a lot of different lights of who I am and really not having any secrets at all. I think everything I've ever done is very public and there's not really many things in my life privately or publicly that I have to hide from anyone. I mean, everything I do is an open book. So I just feel very honored to be able to like still have my life intact and still mentally be very clear and understanding of my direction and always having a lot of pride in who I am without having to change or compromise any values and being able to be honest with people all at the same time. That's a very important thing to me. It's a hard balance to find, but I think I've been able to find a great balance in that. So yeah, I've just been playing video games my whole life, really just living a dream life, and I can't believe it's real, to be honest with you.
So, did you know at an early age, Doug, like this was like the path that you were going to take? And when I say early, like middle school, I mean, I think we've all, anyone listening or watching is probably at some point in their life in the last like 20. I mean, I'm 50, and I remember back in the day, like when I was in middle school, like we had the gaming systems were a lot different than they are today, but we had them, and we there were various options, right? But my point here is like I feel like anyone 50 or younger here is probably going to have this moment in their life, whether that was in middle school or high school or, maybe elementary school, where they, you know, felt that gaming, like that high, I guess. Like just I can look back and remember like the first time, here we go, we're gonna age myself. We got the Nintendo, and then it became the Commodore 64, and you're playing like Mike Tyson Knockout or one of the games on the Commodore like Space Invaders or Asteroids, and you're just like, holy cow, man, this thing's so awesome. So I'm sure everyone has had that moment in their life. If they haven't, well, maybe they'll find it, now whatever the age they are. But when you were young, did you know like right away, like, hey, this is the thing, I want to make like a career out of this, and let's go for it?
It was a weird time. Gaming's changed a lot over the years because now people look at gaming as a job. They don't look at it the same way that it was looked at when I was coming up. When I was coming up, it was more of a passion as opposed to a job. Now people look at it like a way to make an income as opposed to they have to make it. They think because they're naturally good at a game, they could just go in and have a job in it, which is fair. But when we were coming up, it was more so you had to be multi-talented at a lot of different things. You needed to be able to be great at the game. You also had to be able to innovate the industry. You also had to be able to attract eyeballs on the industry. Whereas nowadays, it's the opposite. Players try to just be the best they can be as a player without innovating the industry. They just try to collect as much of a paycheck as possible without broadcasting themselves and making themselves more of a public figure. Whereas, like when we were coming up, there was no public figures in gaming. There was no industry. There was no money involved in it. So when I was a kid, it was the same probably for you. It was my love for the games and Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, you
Yeah.
name it. Like all those games when you're like 10 years old, 15, or even younger, you're playing all these games. Call of Duty came out when I was 12. I started playing a lot of that. Loved it so much, and I didn't realize how much I loved it. It was very unhealthy for me. It was very scary because I basically put all my time into Call of Duty, and I was great in school. I was great at basketball. I ended up becoming terrible at basketball. My grades were horrible. I graduated 372 out of 412 in high school. My grandparents passed away when I was a kid. My inheritance money from the grandparents came in, and my mom took the money to go to a private school for me. And I was basically throwing my education away in the garbage. And I felt so guilty every day, like knowing that my grandparents left money for my mom, and then she wanted to give that money to the education that I asked her to help me with. And I just felt like a big letdown every day, knowing that I was going to school and I was sleeping in class and I wasn't really trying to be the best version of myself. And I wasn't doing anything other than playing a video game all day. So it was a very crazy time for me because I didn't really have a good balance. I didn't really have anyone that I surrounded myself with. I just kind of isolated myself and um, succumbed myself to the video game. And I just feel really appreciative, honestly, because I was able to say I was number one in the world, and I attracted a lot of people around me, and I was able to just make my own way and carve my own path in the gaming space because it was very lonely. Like I never really had a helping hand. I never really had a support system. I never really had a group of people just saying, "Hey, Doug, like this is the way we're going to do this and we're all going to get to the top together." It was always like it felt like a very solo, lonely journey, and it wasn't even like intended. It wasn't like my goal of going on this crusade by myself where I'm just grinding all day long and just working hard. Like it just kind of happened, and I was like scared because it didn't feel good to do at all times. I just couldn't help myself. I just love to play so much. So I don't know. I just feel very lucky.
So do you look back at that experience though, Doug, that there was maybe a tipping point? We talk a lot about that in like the cancer journey that with the patients we deal with, that they kind of they reach this point where they realize like, okay, whether it's acceptance of help and they can't do things alone, or it's just the acceptance of the cancer, and like cancer's not going to define who I am. Was there a point where you can look back? I mean, hindsight's always 2020. I always also preface this question by saying this, that you could like look back and be like, okay, that was the point where like this shifted and my mindset shifted a bit.
Winning the national championship at 17 was that point. Um, I had a lot of confidence in my ability of putting time into things. When I was 15, I was number one in the world in the public leaderboards for gaming. And then my friends told me to get into competitive gaming that I made online. They said you should play on these websites. So I went on game battles and I started playing on these competitive websites. And I clearly knew I wasn't the best pretty quickly. There was a lot of really great players that were just better. And I had to do a lot of studying and a lot of work to put myself in a situation where other players believed in me and wanted to play with me, but also what I could keep up and play good enough to match these other players. And then the national championship was the biggest Call of Duty event of the time. It had the biggest prize pool, which was $50,000 in 2011, and we were the seventh best team. So we weren't even the best team, and all the teams that were better than us were obviously ranked higher, and we beat every single one of them without losing once. And that was definitely that tipping moment for me because no one expected us to win. No one thought we were good enough. We didn't win anything all year. We kept the same team. We didn't really change anything. But I guess the demeanor kind of shifted and changed going into the event. I knew personally like the team was really good and I had a lot of confidence in us, but our team was in a weird spot. We didn't really have a lot of confidence in each other. I had a lot of confidence in the team though. And I just remember going into that tournament, just leaving it all out there and just doing everything I could to just be the best that I can be for the team. And everyone stepped up and we won. And I think that was the moment where I knew that you can really manifest whatever you want in this world. It's not crazy if you could actually make it come true. And I think a lot of people live in this state of self doubt, but also this state of like delusion at the same time where at least for me it feels that way. Like I always feel like sometimes I'm not good enough, but then sometimes I'm like, Doug, come on, like you got like a plethora of evidence behind you of things that you've done to make come true. So what are you talking about? You can do whatever you set your mind to. So I think that if I have those feelings and a lot of other people have those feelings too, and I think that if you want to do anything, you just have to set your mind to it and you have to be consistent and you have to be willing to take a lot of sacrifices. And I think that's the separation that people don't understand because no one's going to know what those sacrifices are except for yourself when the moments happen. And it's all about your perception on it. Like, what are you willing to risk and what are you willing to lose to gain something or achieve a goal or get towards a project in some way, right? So that was definitely the moment because it was a team and our team was able to come together and win. And that really gave me a lot of confidence in my life. Like I just felt on top of the world after that. I felt unstoppable. And I carried that throughout my entire life since that point.
So that was at 17. You guys win the world championships. And then now you fast forward to like really the last couple years. So were you still gaming through 17, through where you came up with this idea of pulling off this massive feat of this world champion, this Guinness World Record of pull-ups?
It was like a movie, honestly. Like I won that. And then I said, gaming's not going to have a future. I'm going to get a real job and work in a gym and start working out. So I got this job at LA Fitness working at the front desk. And then I saw gaming working out for one other person. And I'm like, I can do everything he does. I know I can. So I'm just going to go do it. Like, what am I doing with my time? Let me just go do everything. Like, I had this role model. His name's Nate Shop. He did everything so well. And I'm like, I can do everything Matt's doing. I can do everything Nate Shot's doing. So why don't I just go do it? Like, so I came back into gaming and I made it work for me really, really quickly. I was able to get into phase and win and do really well with those guys. And then I ended up dating a supermodel and traveling the world and becoming like a big YouTuber and just doing whatever content I felt like doing, to be honest with you, and just showcasing my relationship and my family life and still gaming and still doing workouts and keeping it all together in that way. I wanted to brand myself as a fitness gamer. I wanted people to know that I came from the gaming world, but I love fitness. And that's really what I did in my early 20s. Then I ended up ending my relationship with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and I wanted to go back into the gaming world again. And that was a very dark time, I would say, because all the love I used to receive turned up being, it almost felt like there was this sense of like, I'm stupid and I can't believe you would do something like that. Why would you break up with this beautiful girl for a video game? When like I honestly just didn't want to, like I was just trying to protect the relationship. I didn't want to like say anything bad about my ex-girlfriend and like throw her under the bus. It was more so about just kind of like uplifting everyone. Like I didn't want to have my personal issues out in the public and kind of scream them to people because it's just not fair for anyone. So I felt like I had to take a lot of the hits and a lot of negativity, and it definitely affected me a lot. Just hearing every day, like, you dumped a model for COD, you're a loser. Like, I got a lot of harassment. Still to this day, I'll still get it too, which is funny. But it definitely changes you in ways. It makes you feel like you go from the top of the mountain to the lowest lowest valleys as well. So I felt like it was a time to embrace a new challenge for myself and push myself to a new limit that I thought I could achieve, which would be doing pull-ups for an entire day. And I think that that was a great thing for me because it kind of gave me great perspective on life and what really matters to me and where I want my future to go. It's not always about having the best this or the best that, which is stuff that I was always chasing. Always being the best at something was a big fascination to me. And ironically enough, like doing the most pull-ups in a day makes you the best at something at a point in time. But I don't know. The formula of like getting to the top of a mountain is a very easy code for me to understand, and it's not something that I care to like flaunt or like I don't care to like brag about it. I just want to do it and just push others to be better. That's really a big fascination I have now going into my 30s.
It's kind of fascinating, Doug. I mean, I think you said a couple of very powerful things there. I think in this day and age that we live in, where social is such a big part of everyone's lives, and rightly wrong. Listen, I'm not here to judge. This is not the episode. We're not judging people here, but to your point where you said like, hey, like you said something along the lines, and I'm just paraphrasing here. I've got a note that I wrote down. It's like you were just like, just going to put it all out there, live your life. You realize that, through this medium, through YouTube and social media, like you could create a following and, people want that content. Right. And you were you, like you were, it wasn't, there was no facade. Right. But there's also this level of vulnerability. Right, that you become very vulnerable, right? Because then, as you said, you ended that relationship, and then you're getting these attacks, which is ending a relationship is pretty common, right? Like people end relationships all the time for whatever reason. I'm not judging that decision, but just being attacked on social media, after you allow the public to see your life, like what a day in a life, which is very real. Which is I think like right now with social media, I think there's a lot of scrutiny now with what's real, what's not real, right? But here is a guy showing everything that's real, but then gets scrutiny for being very authentic. I guess is my point here. Like it's kind of fascinating how social media can do that, right? Like what do people really want to see? I guess is the question, and I'm not trying to answer that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I always felt I had amazing mentors. Shout out Phase as well. I mean, I had some amazing mentors in Phase that taught me a lot about these things. Like I always think that I'm not like my thought is two things. I don't think I'm good enough, but I think that I'm willing to be the best at something if I'm willing to put myself through it. So if I want something, I'm going to get it. I don't worry about getting something if I want it. It's more so about I think that there's so many people that are better than me naturally at things because I can sense it when I'm around them. Like the Phase guys, I felt like they were so much better at content creation and storytelling and making themselves human, vulnerable, charismatic, and just fun all at the same time and telling stories. They were really amazing at branding their lives in ways that no one else could do. Like honestly, that's how I always looked at them when I saw Phase and being a part of Phase and being close to them. So I just kind of absorbed everything that I saw around me. I wanted to be just like a lot of the idols that I had around me. And I wanted to do it in my way, which was pretty simple. I thought that my unique thing was I've won championships in gaming, and I'm one of the few people who work out very consistently in the gaming world. So I thought inspiring gamers to get in shape was the thought in my head that was very unique. And that's the thing that I always would pry on in my head because that was the two things I always loved, gaming and fitness. Loved both of them, and I wanted to be known as a gaming champion. I want to be known as someone who pushes people with fitness as well. So yeah, just having those mentors was awesome. They taught me so much about making yourself vulnerable. And if you want to branch out, if you want to have more eyeballs on you, you have to make yourself vulnerable. You have to show people your intentions. You have to tell people why you're doing what you want to do. You have to send like positive messages. You always have to try to showcase the best version of yourself and try to just I don't know how to explain it, but just show your best version of yourself. Give your best effort as much as humanly possible. You don't have to be the most real person in the world. You just have to be the best you can be. So I always try to make sure that whenever I was on camera, I would always enunciate my words. I'd always speak from a lot of confidence. I'd always speak with a lot of enthusiasm. I'd always make sure I was over the top without being too over the top. as much as I could with things, and just trying to be full of life as much as possible, because at the end of the day, you're an escape for people if they're watching you for entertainment. So yeah, I thought about a lot of those things going through the content creation world, and that's kind of what I emulated throughout my life. I just always try to show the best versions of myself and the people around me. I never would show anyone in a negative light. I'd always make sure I showed everyone in their best versions. I wanted people to feel proud. I wanted people, if they were going to watch a video, if they were in it, I wanted them to feel good about it. I wanted them to feel happy. I wanted them to feel just a sense of joy, just being a part of something. And that's always what I've thought in my head, just trying to like make joy that doesn't exist, make things happy that just bring life to things. That was always a huge thing to me. So I just think it's tough when on social media you do that, and then I guess you just move on in different ways in life, and sometimes it changes you. Like I stopped telling people more about myself as time went on. I didn't really make myself vulnerable as much anymore because of all the hate that I would get. So I would kind of just start shutting down, and I didn't really like the person I was becoming. I didn't like the influences I had around me. I got into a new relationship, and I felt like it just got worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, man, I'm falling a lot far from the person I used to be, the person that I strive to be. And I want to get back to that person again. I want to be that version of myself again. So I haven't had a girlfriend in years now. I've just been on the grind with these pull-ups and this training. So like I said, just feeling extremely grateful for my coach and my trainer, Jackson, for training me throughout this process and building me back up to this point again. I feel indestructible now. I mean, there's nothing that will stop me ever from achieving something. So it feels
I
really good to have this confidence.
I love it. We can tell. So being into fitness, there's a lot of movements, Doug. Like if you're, I would use the term gym rat, but if you're at a gym, you're working out. Did you watch like, and I'm going to use a name here. I mean, I think he's gotten kind of a lot of notoriety over the last like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. I think he at one point held the record, but did you watch like Dave Goggins or someone like that you said, all right, I'm going to do pull-ups. Like why pull-ups? Like why that movement? Because I mean, there's a bunch of other fitness movements, but I mean, I'm 6'2", 200 pounds, man. Pull-ups are not easy, like for my body. So like I'm in awe, man. This is like great, like guys that do this, like, and so what was it about the movement? Like why the pull-up record?
I think it's hard to not associate pull-ups with David Goggins with everything that he's talked
Yeah.
about and his experiences. I still haven't read his book. I still haven't heard his story about his pull-up training at all. It was a big thing to me when I went through training to not compare anyone else to me in any way at all. As much as I would like try to like see who was going for the best or who was going for the record at the time, I would always study all these other people around me and see little notes or things I could take. But ultimately I knew I had the best coach in the world, and I didn't really need much outside of my coach. But I was very eager to make friends with people in the pull up world and see where their journeys were at and their motivations. But Goggins, there's no footage of him breaking the pull up record. There's only like
No.
short little clips. And I think it's just really difficult because he did it 10 years ago. So I don't think people realize how, as time goes on, obviously records are going to get advanced, but also it's just hard to keep onto that footage for so long. I mean, even for me, I always thought I was going to have this footage forever, which I guess I do, but it's so hard because it's in so many clips, and it's so hard to like find every little angle and saving everything. You're going to have to get like a giant storage for your computer to save it
Yeah,
on. I,
terabyte or
I highly
so.
doubt, yeah, I highly doubt that 10 years ago, that was something that Goggins was thinking about, like saving
Correct.
all this pull-up footage. So it's just kind of hard to see any of the footage or any of the stuff that they were going through. But I decided to go to the pull-ups because of Jackson. It was really him. Like if I
Your
saw some
coach.
egotist,
This is
yeah,
your
if I
coach,
saw
yeah.
absolutely, if I saw some egotistical dude like kind of reminded me of versions of myself when I was in my younger 20s, like always shirtless and clickbaiting people with like your body, which is fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with it because I would do it myself. So I understand. But if it was something like that, that wasn't what I was trying to get towards. That's not something that would have pushed me to want to do the pull up record. But seeing that Jackson was very humble about it, and he was very big on promoting Dementia Australia, and
Mhm.
he didn't really make it about himself. That's something that really gravitated me to him, because I wanted to find a person who was very motivated and hardworking, but also is willing to sacrifice for the greater good for others. So I thought if for me, it was like, well, if I'm going to go for a pull up record, it would make a lot of sense if I give a lot of the credit to my coach because I believe that he's the best. And I think you need to surround yourself with the best if you want to be the best. And then I also think that we could tell a really cool story of showing someone who's really qualified in a field teaching someone who's not, like almost like a master and an apprentice. And that was really a whole motivation. I wanted to tell a unique story to people where you could just be the bottom of the barrel in something and not have experience, but you could still rise all the way to the top as long as you take the right paths and you make the right choices and you take the right sacrifices. And I wanted to really show that in a real way. And that's what the whole documentary is about that we've been filming since the beginning. It's really about showing a broken person who, and I'm talking about myself in the third person, but a broken person who is basically losing their mind and just going crazy throughout training and trying to keep it together and show how they slowly are getting towards the finish line and what it looks like to get to the top and how it's not really what you would expect it to be. It's not always going to be this glorious mountain where you're just shining with like God's light on you and you just feel like you're at the pinnacle of happiness. That's not what it means. It's not what it is. So I think it was just a really great opportunity to tell a unique story, to get my life back on track in the way I wanted it to, at least in my head, and then also make an amazing friend and find somebody who's extremely giving and selfless and just really, really good at what they do. And that was really the biggest motivation. If anyone else had the pull-up record, I probably wouldn't have done it. Honestly, I think I did it because it was Jackson.
It's powerful. So let's talk about the journey. And so you start this training like 16 months ago, right? Is that correct?
Yeah,
So just take us back to day one. Like, so, and not, we don't have to go into every single detail, but you like, I know we talked before, like you were, like you said, I think you mentioned already, like no girls, no drinks, nothing. Just you dove in head first. And this was the ultimate goal was eventually, did you have a date in mind or was it like, hey, when we get to a certain point, like then we'll go for this thing, but we've got to do this amount of training beforehand?
yeah. In the beginning, I didn't really realize how much time it was going to take. At first, I thought I could maybe break it in like, the same amount of time as Jackson. It took him 8 months. So I'm like, maybe I could do it in, if I get the best training, maybe I could do it in 6. Maybe I could do it in 7. Maybe it'd take me 8 or 9 months. Like I'm putting this timetable in my head. But then I realized what the training is. And even with the best training and the best coaching and the best routine and the best way of going about your life, it's still going to take a long time. And it's a very long process. So my coach did a great job of basically making me focus only on the next day, every single day, for the entire time, every time. And when I look back on it now, I'm very grateful for that because it's an absolute grind. And I think if he was to tell me about the next steps too early, I probably would have ended up quitting. There were so many days I wanted to quit and stop, and I cried myself to sleep like 4 nights in a row, 4 months in a row, every night for 4 months, just because of the pain. I wasn't used to it, and it was just so much pain. I mean, unfathomable amounts of pain. So yeah, just the timetable in my head was like 6 to 9 months, but I think if you want to break the record and also have ample time to be able to save just in case, which is what we had, like 3 hours left, you really got to train for a very long period of time. Like I would say at least for 1 year if you really want to feel confident about breaking the record, or else it just physically won't be possible. You won't be able to do it.
So let's just take an average day during the training cycle. Let's get through the first couple of months, maybe. What does an average day for training look like? Just to give the kind of the audience like an idea of like what this truly means, like grinding this way for like 16 months.
So you want to always train at your peak part of the day. You also want to make sure that your body is fully neutralized with everything it needs the day before. So you want to make sure it depends on how big the session is going to be, especially the second half of training. But I would say you would have to build up maintenance sessions of 2 hour sessions consistently for months on end, and also do big sessions in there as well, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. And this is going to be a few times a week because if you're not doing a training session, you're recovering your body and you're always going to be in a state of depletion. So you're always going to be basically a walking zombie. You're not going to have any energy in you. If you feel like you're energized and you have a lot of energy in you, you're probably not training hard enough. You physically have to and mentally have to push to the point where there's nothing inside of you every single day. I would say an average day of training, if I was to average a session, I would say 4.5 hours would be like an average medium,
Mm.
and it's nonstop. There's no breaks. Like you're not taking a second off in that 4.5 hours, and you don't move. So you sit there or you stand there. I stood for like the first year of training. I didn't like I just stood still completely and just did the pull-ups. But then as time went on, I started to sit stand when it got really intense, when my body just physically couldn't stand anymore. Um, you basically are just going to stand there and you have to do the sessions. There's no shortcuts around them. There's nothing you can do other than do the sessions. And if you're taking rest breaks, you're doing it wrong. If you're doing ice baths, you're doing it wrong. If you're doing anything with ice or cold, you're doing it wrong. Everything should be heat. If you're in the heat as much as possible, doing hot yoga, going in a steam shower, going in a sauna, after a session. That's what you want. On off days and rest days, your body's going to get injured a lot, no matter how perfect your pull up form is or anything you do. Your body's not used to doing that amount of volume. You have to train it to do that amount of volume, and you will get injured. I promise there will be so many injuries, no matter who you are. And you're going to have to use a lot of heat to recover from a lot of these injuries, too. And you're just constantly dead. You have nothing in you all the time, and it's mind numbing, and it's so depressing, and it's borderline. Like I became borderline suicidal throughout the training, where not that I'd like wanted to jump off of a bridge or like shoot myself or something. It was more so the pain was so bad where anything was more enjoyable than going through that every day. I would have rather have done anything with my life than continue going forward with it, because I just knew no matter how great of a day I had, I'd do like a 6 hour pull-up session and do like 2,500 pull-ups or something in that amount of time. And I knew that that was great and I would feel so good for like 30 minutes. But then the reality set in that I'm doing this again in like a day or two. And I'm going to do this again in a day or two, again and again and again for like a year and a half. And it was just unfathomably long. I lost my mind so many times and I had no reason to continue going. Not even going for the record made sense anymore. It didn't even like feel like a goal anymore. It got to the point where life was so miserable, and like that's why I said if anyone's going for the record, I would love to help them out, because I know they're going to need someone to lean on, whether it's like a loved one or someone they can have confidence in. They're going to need someone to lean on. It's such a long process, and I really don't recommend people do it. But if you really want to go through it and you're confident you want to go get it, then I'm sure you're going to need some help, and I'm sure it would be nice if you had someone in your corner.
So then let's just talk real quick about the mental health aspect here. Like you mentioned, like how deep and ugly it was. Was there a strategy that you used to like pull yourself out of that?
There's nothing. There's no shortcut. I mean, the only thing you can do is like find some form of happiness in it. It's very hard to find though. Like the light at the end of the tunnel becomes minuscule to the point where you don't see it anymore. And the only thing that kept me going was knowing that I could do my coach proud. Like my coach worked really hard to get me to this point, and I felt like I would just be a disappointment to my coach if I quit on him. I had to mentally look at this clock for so long every day of my life for such a long period of time, and it would get to the point I had to tell myself certain things like, all right, like when I'm doing 11 pull-ups a minute for like 6 hours straight, and I'm like 4.5 hours into it, it's like, all right, Doug, give me your best six right now. Do it right now. You can do it. You know you can do this. You're built for this. You've been doing this for so long. And it's like you have like 15-second breaks in between your sets. And this is what I'd be saying in my head. It's like, all right, here we go. Ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. There you go. Nice. Great. You just did a great job. That was 6. Now give me 5. You can do 5. I know you can do 5. You can do this because you've been doing this for so long. Do it again. Ready? Here we go. Let's go. Boom. And I would say that in my head on repeat for like hours on end, because there was nothing else to say. The negative thoughts are so strong. You start like having these delusions of things that don't even exist, and all these like demons. I guess it's just like your brain telling you to quit. That's at least what I dealt with. It's felt like anything that's negative was just screaming at me all the time, and I had no control over it at all. It was the most mental torture I could ever possibly imagine. I can't imagine anything being a worse mental torture than that, because you keep on going back to it. You don't stop doing it, and you know it's only going to get worse. It never gets better. Nothing gets easier with it. It only got harder every single day.
And now Jackson, he's from Australia. You guys just met, right? Like I think he didn't come, he wasn't with you in the gym every day, right?
No, we only spoke through Instagram, and we would speak. He's like 14 hours ahead of me. So
Yeah.
when it was
Yeah.
night
So
for
the
me, it was
time
day for him.
different.
When it was day
Yeah.
for him, yeah.
So during this time though, I'm sure there's some encouragement. Like like you said, focus just on the next day. Don't worry about what's coming down the month, but we're just worried about getting to tomorrow. So, was there anyone else on your team? Like, I'm sure you had to have nutrition dialed in. I know you mentioned recovery being heat, but were there other folks that, like, kind of from a team perspective here, Doug, that were like in your corner, kind of like, hey, I'll get your nutrition or what recovery modalities we need today because of whatever we're dealing with?
When it came to that, no. I would say surplus strength was a great help in terms of helping me getting a pull-up station for me to do pull-ups on, and Boston Breach just being very supportive. But in terms of the process, there's a lot of people who think, if you want to go to a trainer or have them help you, and there's not really any expertise outside of the people who probably have done it before. Because when I learned about the training through Jackson, I realized how much more superior his knowledge was compared to anyone else's. He just knew what he was talking about to a very high degree. He could pinpoint the amount of pull-ups you could do in a day. There's no limit. You can do as many as you want. I mean, someone's going to do 10. Someone's definitely going to break 11, 12, 13. It's going to happen. And I'm not going to be surprised when I see it. I'm going to be very happy for those people knowing that they're going to have to go through a lot to get there. But yeah, anything with trainers or getting like a nutritionist, or I don't know, like people think weighted pull-ups are going to help. It's not. Like, it's just a waste of time. There's no secret. It's eat, sleep, hydrate, and pull-ups. It's that simple, and you have to do it for a long period of time. And I guess if you like self-train yourself, you can learn a lot as you go along the way. But there's definitely formulas and methods to make the training as efficient as possible. And even when you do that, it's still really hard. And you never want to keep going, no matter what. Even when you know you have the best formula, it's still extremely hard to continue to go. But if you just have some simple carbs the night before, and then during your sessions, you have to make sure that you're obviously hydrating and eating as well.
Mhm.
And then you want to make sure that you're not eating too much on your off days or your rest days, but you also don't want to eat too little because you want your body to recover. It's a very complex lifestyle to live, and even simplifying it is tough.
Let's shift gears here, talk a little bit about the charity component here, whereas Project Purple, we benefited from this record and your attempt here. Talk a little bit about, I know you've got a personal connection with your grandmother, but before we get there, why do charity? You didn't have to choose a charity.
Well, I think going for a pull-up world record is a very selfish thing to do, and you're going to be selfish with a lot of things in your life. So I didn't want to make going for a pull-up world record about me. I really wanted to make it about others and my coach and the people that matter to me, and especially a charity, because my grandmother died of pancreas cancer when I was 12, and I just felt like if you're gonna spread awareness when you get a pull-up world record and you're gonna have attention on you, at least someone in my position, because I do have a bigger following, I didn't want to make it all about myself. That was definitely something that I was trying to avoid as much as I could. I didn't really brand myself through it. I didn't really like make a lot of videos or YouTube content about it. I realized very quickly it's hard to go through doing any of that while you're going for this record. It's better to just shut everything down completely and focus on the goal. And it's a very selfish process. So I didn't want to make a day where I break a pull-up world record. I didn't want the whole narrative to be like, look at me, I'm the best in the world at pull-ups. Look at me, I'm so jacked, and look at me, I'm this and I'm that. It was really about just raising awareness for other things that matter to me, and just kind of letting the actions speak for themselves, and letting people benefit in ways that it's possible. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to just show that, hey, we could push to a breaking point in something, because there's people out there that are just actually like, I'm gonna be okay. Like, I'm obviously gonna be in a lot of pain, but I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna recover. I'm gonna heal. But there's people out there who have diseases where you can recover and you can heal from them, or maybe with some help you have a chance. And that's really what it's all about, is finding some hope and finding some way of just supporting someone else. And that's really what I wanted this record to be about. How I had a coach support me to get to a goal, and if I achieve this goal, then I can help support someone else as well, which is you guys and Project Purple.
It's awesome. Well, we're excited that you took us along this journey, and I'll just say this, Doug, for someone who's 30 and with the career you have built and the things you have done, it would have been probably very easy for you to make the decision not to, but it's also very easy to make the decision to do so, and that means a lot more to show of the person you are, to be selfless versus being selfish, with this amazing feat. So thank you for allowing us to be on the journey Thank you for helping us to amplify awareness. I mean, this is an awareness game for us, and the more people that are aware of pancreatic cancer, aware of our mission, we are going to put a big dent in this disease. We may not pay for the cure, but we probably may push someone that might be the person, to your point, like what you've done. Someone's going to come and break this record. It's just a matter of time, right? And I always say, like, we may never get the cure, like us, our funding, but maybe we're the group that pushes that person to get their, further funding from the government or from whatever discovery they make eventually. But action, that we have here, and the action that you've taken to be so selfless and do this to raise awareness for a charity, and in particular our cause and our mission, is just really, really special. So thank you.
Of course, it's an honor and it's a privilege and it's a pleasure. I would never want it any other way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's all I can say with it. And it's really humbling. My last question here, and then we're gonna share your social handles so our followers, the Project Purple community, can go out there and follow you. What's next? The $1 million question. What's the
Uh,
next feat? And when I say what's next, I know you talked about you got to get all that video uploaded to Guinness, get the world record. But like what do you foresee? Like where do you see yourself in like 5 years, let's say?
oh man, I don't know. My life is kind of crazy, dude. I don't know. Like I could see a lot happening. I could see myself just settling down where I live right now and finding a wife and having kids and being a dad. That's something I definitely want, is to be a dad. But I'm pretty crazy, man. I mean, I've learned a lot about myself, and I think like I'm pretty happy with anything. I'm happy wherever I am. I don't need the most or the least. I'm just happy being in my own skin. So as long as I just as long as I'm having fun, I don't really care what I'm doing. I don't want to go back to that place I was in training and how tough it was, because that was the hardest thing I've ever done. So moving forward, I definitely am going to climb Everest with Jackson. He made that very clear. He wants to climb Mount Everest in the next 6 years. So I'll be making a trip to Mount Everest at some point and climbing to the top of Mount Everest for Jackson. I'm definitely going to make a trip out to Australia to visit him and a former world record holder, Gary, as well. Just hang out with him. And I just want to find a lot of people that are willing to push to those extremes as well. That's a big fascination of mine. I don't know where my life's going to go. All I know is that I'm going to try to find people that are like-minded in that way, and see what happens. And then obviously always staying true to gaming and fitness all at the same time. So it's a broad answer. I don't really have something specific, but I know whenever I feel moved to do something, then I am going to make that real. And whatever that's going to be, we'll find out.
It's awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the Project Purple podcast. And thank you once again for your efforts to help us raise awareness. And congratulations on the record. We can't wait to see you get the official plaque, which I know will come in probably a couple months once everything is submitted and everything's validated. Truly, it's been an honor to have you here and to have you, use our mission as the reason for this record. For those watching and listening, where's the best place for them to follow along and whatever Doug does next?
Just at Censor on X or Instagram or YouTube or Snapchat, Twitch, any of all the socials, TikTok. My social media handle is just at Censor. And yeah, you can just follow me anywhere on any of those socials. I'm always active on at least one of them, whether I'm live streaming or making a YouTube video or tweeting or posting on Instagram or whatever. Like, there's always going to be a social that I'm active on. So anywhere at Censor.
Awesome. Doug Censor Martin, the Guinness World Record for the most pull-ups, 9,250. Thank you for being a guest on the Project Purple podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Project Purple podcast. If you like today's episode, feel free to share this episode. Make sure to follow the Project Purple podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. That's a wrap of another episode of the Project Purple podcast. Be safe until next time. Thanks for listening.